So in this edition of The Socket, I'm going to be tackling one of the big questions. Are video games art? Here's how I break this question down. To me, video games are undoubtedly art. The level design in Super Mario Bros., that's art. Stringing together a million-point combo in Tony Hawk, that's art. Puzzling out the story of Dark Souls using nothing but snippets of conversation and vague item descriptions, that's art. Video games are full of unique opportunities to interface with the player and provide all kinds of experiences that no other artistic medium can achieve. But then there are a breed of games which try to be capital A art. I don't like these games. They rarely focus on gameplay and instead focus on things like mood and aesthetic. They offer things that other mediums also offer and try to provide an experience instead of focusing on what makes video games unique. Limbo is one of the poster children for this breed of game, and I hate it. You can tell it wants to be art because the guy who made it put his name on the title screen for no reason. Limbo is an example of how not to create a puzzle platformer. The puzzle design in Limbo is atrocious for the vast majority of the game. This is a bummer because, outside its graphical style, there's absolutely nothing else to Limbo. There's no plot, there are no characters, no dialogue, no music, no nothing. I get the sense that this is done, for the art. As everybody knows, nothing is more artful than ambiguity. So, when the abrupt and nonsensical ending occurs, now we're into the game, we're obviously supposed to be mystified and intrigued. But with absolutely no context or explanation, the ending feels like a middle finger to the player. Because all we have to go on is the name of the game, the ending just becomes, you were in limbo. There's not really any other feasible interpretation because there's nothing to base your interpretation on. So, what do you do in Limbo if there's no plot or characters or detail? You run, you climb, and you die. Here's where my main gripe with Limbo appears. The puzzles in Limbo are not fun. They are not clever. They are mean-spirited and poorly designed. They never once teach you what to do, only what not to do. Here's my favorite example. I call them the pressers. You come across a giant metal plate suspended above a button. Obviously, this thing wants to kill you. So you walk onto the plate, avoiding the obvious-looking button. The plate kills you. Huh. Okay, so you want to step onto the button. Okay, done. Puzzle solved. Here's another plate. You jump onto the button. The plate kills you. This is appallingly bad game design. It's also not a puzzle. It's like a yes or no answer question you can retake as many times as you want. Either you get killed by the plate or you don't. If you do, you redo it again the right way. All this area teaches the player is that the game is going to be unfair. There are so many examples of this idea throughout the game that the few okay puzzles seem like revelations in contrast. Another example. This puzzle requires you to throw 2 different switches to manipulate the water levels in 2 different areas. Since the risk of dying is low, this is already one of the highlights of the game, but still, this boils down to 2 switches. You have to throw them in a specific order, but there's no other element at play here. As long as you bash your head against this puzzle for long enough, no matter what, you will get past it. It's entirely possible that someone could pass this puzzle without puzzling anything out. Again, this is one of the better puzzles in the game. Here's an example of a bad puzzle. So, my main point here is, having a death state in a puzzle platformer is not a good idea. Braid, one of the pioneers of the genre, knew this. Because you can always rewind time in that game, puzzles do not force their solutions on you by narrowing down wrong answers. Instead, you are forced to examine your own mistakes over time and within the environment. This is such an elegant solution compared to what is used in Limbo that it shocks me that Braid predates this game by a full 2 years. Maybe it makes sense that Limbo doesn't expect the player to learn any lessons considering it didn't learn any itself. Now let's talk about the other part of Limbo, the visuals. Limbo has not aged well in this sense. Its style is great, even if it's a complete ripoff of Eraserhead in terms of both visual and audio design, but the decision to make everything physics-based means that none of the animations look right. Your character doesn't even bend his knees when he jumps, he just kind of levitates into the air. Nothing feels handcrafted. Deaths are supposed to be gruesome and appalling, but the way your body just kind of bursts into component parts looks ridiculous. Even the ending suffers because of this. The way the player's body ragdolls looks uncanny and distracting, during a moment that is supposed to justify the entire rest of the game. Just look at how this guy moves! Limbo could be a Flash game from 2007, and the graphics, puzzle design, and length would all fit perfectly. The best thing I can say about Limbo is that it's short. The game is at its best during its first 5 minutes when there's a sense of exploration and mystery. By the end of the game, all of that is replaced by tedium and frustration. As such, I socket Limbo in under Twilight Princess at the bottom of the list. I think it's going to stay there for a while.